Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Trailmakers Creations by ThatDomGuy. Today we're going to be trying to build a simple boat. See if I can show you guys the basics of building a floating boat. So boats are a lot like cars in the sense that aerodynamics is going to play a big part in how your boat handles and how quick it moves through the water. So we'll just start with some basics. So we're going to go into build mode. We're going to select again our 4x8 to start with. Now again, we can go super simple. We'll select a seat. If you want to, if you're not sure whether or not it's going to float too good, it's always good to start with a diving bell, just in case your boat does float. And you can always remove it and put a lighter seat on it, or a non-water seat. Once you add some other weight on there, you can take that weight off, put the rest of your boat on there and balance it out. But to start with, it's usually good to start with something that can handle being in the water, just so you can see how it behaves without being kicked out of your seat all the time. So, as far as flotation, we're going to come down here to our balance tab, and here we have our 4 different flotation devices. There's the buoyancy control device, which you can control with the arrow keys up and down, filling it and emptying it so you can raise or sink, great for subs. Large pontoons, which are really large, your mediums, which are normal, and your small pontoons. Now, the small ones aren't very good except for small detail adjustments, but again, they take up 2 space, so it's always good to start with like a medium pontoon, but we'll start with some small ones. So aerodynamic being a big contributing factor to speed, we want to make sure that anything that we do attach to the frame of our boat is going to be something that we can put some aerodynamic pieces over, so that we can negate the resistance, the air friction. As we can see, our aerodynamics here, flat front, very red, and these as well are orange. So we want to find some way of putting some aerodynamic pieces in front of those. So we can start with something like this. Now automatically, if I were to put this in the water right now, whenever you look at your build from the side, you want to see where it's going to be the lightest. Your flotation devices are going to want to be on top. So this is probably going to automatically just flip upside down as soon as you put it in the water. So let's have a look-see. Jump down to the water here, hit R to rebuild. We'll rebuild, and as we can see, upside down, and it seems like it's at like 0 buoyancy. Oh no, it is dropping a little bit. It's weird when them little smoke things coming off of there. It is strange. So yeah, as we can see, barely keeps itself from sinking. So we'll just backspace, get ourselves back here, going back into build mode. We'll get rid of these little ones. No, we don't want to color them. We want to delete them. Now, boats can be some of the funnest creations in this game. Again, because you can move in 3 dimensions, up, down, left, right, rather than just 2 dimensions on the ground. And there's no shock impact when you hit the water, so you can jump way out of the water really high, hit the water. Your boat's not going to fly apart. So we'll grab some medium pontoons, and again, using our left alt, we'll hold that down with our thumb. We can rotate this. Now, so you want to try and keep our buoyancy devices as high as possible. And again, just a reminder for anybody, in case you haven't watched the other video, put a little tab up in the top there if you want to click on it on how to build a basic car. The left alt and left control give you your left alt is for your rotating of your pieces. And once you have one piece selected, left control will allow you to click on another piece and select more than one piece, and deselect more than one piece as well. So once we have our pontoons on here, now this should float just great, so we can test this right away. We'll just bring it into the water. These large pontoons are significantly better than the small ones, so as we can see, it just pops right up to the surface, stays level. Now as you can see, you can get some tilting just from your seat control, which, depending on the size of your vehicle, can actually work as just for steering. But as soon as you get any speed going, then that small amount of seat control doesn't really doesn't have the effect that you'd like. So we know that this floats, so now what we need to do, and we can build in the water, so now that we're down here, we can just hit build mode. It's a little disorienting going underwater, but it's totally doable. So now what we need to do is add some propulsion to this. Now this is where it gets important with watercraft, because if I were to simply put a propulsion is going to be found under here, and our propellers are down here at the end. So dependent on where we put this, so I'm going to put one propeller here. Again, it's selected. I'm going to go to the configure tab. It's going to let me know down here, W or S. W is forward. I'm going to have that as spacebar. S, we don't want any backwards, so you can just click in there. It wants you to press a button, so you can press any button either way, or you can just click the X to clear it, so that you have no controls for that. We have space, and that should be all we need with that. Now what we're going to see here is when we build this in and we float, we're going to get into the seat. As soon as I hit space, it's going to want to, all the propulsion is coming from the bottom. So unless you just go tap, 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 it's just going to want to flip you over. So all the acceleration is coming from the bottom of your craft, so it's just going to want to flip you over constantly. So what you want to try and do as you're building is you want to try and balance your center of gravity with where your propulsion is. So what I'm going to try doing is moving this back. I'll rotate it over like this. I'm just going to try sticking one on the back like this. Build that and see how that handles. Now we have a little bit more weight in the back, and as you can see, the thruster's barely touching the water. Every now and then it's touching. But if I pull back, then the back side of the vehicle will end up more in the water, and then you can get some pulling. The steering is just seat control. So something like that. So we'll go back into build mode. Now that seems a little too high. It's out of the water. So what we're going to end up doing is we'll build a little bit more onto the shape of the boat. We'll use some aerodynamic pieces. Slap a couple of these onto the front. Copy that one out that way. We'll bring a couple of these over and rotate them sideways. And we can copy these up this way, so we have a bit of slope on the front here. I guess we can go with a solid one there, but we'll just go with these two for now. Something simple like that. We'll try building. Oh yeah, what happened there? Repair? Oh, I think it's because it's inside the build when it tries to build. So we still have barely any contact with the propeller in the back, because we've added some weight to the front, which is all fine and dandy. What we can do, so we can flip this propeller over and drop it down one square. This is where it was sitting before. This is where it'll be sitting now. Or we can even drop it one more and just have it so that it's level with the back of our main body. Then we can just grab a small, let's grab a deuce. Rotate that one. Oh, it's not going to be long enough. Got to go with the 3. Grab the 3, pop it down, connect our propeller like that, and then we can build that, and we'll see. Come on, man. So now you can see our propeller is definitely in the water. If we hit space, it's still going to want to propel from below, and it's just going to flip us over every time. So that's lots of propellant from the bottom still. So what you can do to try and counter that, because it's all pushing from the bottom, take these and rotate them sideways. I'm gonna put another one on this side just for the sake of symmetry. We can see now that they're in line with the body here where our flotation devices are. There's a little bit more weight above them, so it still might tip back a bit, but let's try building. Oh, of course, now we got way too much weight in the back. So another way of countering weight is you want, just select your seat, move your seat ahead a little. There you go. Seat's the heaviest thing on it right now, right? So moving the seat one square forward or one square back can actually have pretty dramatic effects. So we'll hit the space bar and we'll see how this goes. As you can see, because we're in line with the center of gravity, it's propelling me straight forward rather than trying to push the front end up, or push, if the propellers are too high, then they'll push your front end down and you'll just end up going into the water all the time. So doing 50 mile an hour with 2 propellers. So we can remove a little bit of the weight off this again. We know it floats, so we can take our seat off with like this. We could grab a different seat, a lighter seat. Let's try the go-kart seat. Nice and light. We'll move it right to the front. We'll build. We'll get in. And that's the basics of boats, really. So the more weight that you're going to add, the more you're going to want to make sure that your weight is distributed in the center and that your propulsion isn't pushing too much from the top or too much from the bottom. And again, we would go definitely a lot faster. We can see if we go into build mode here, hit our aerodynamics tab, and we can see we've got lots of red here. So all it takes basically is finding out where your red is. Like say these pontoons here, for example. So I would remove these 2 sides. So I have some connection points. Come into these sloped sides here. Grab something taller than the single. Something that's going to cover more of that. Aerodynamics again. You can see we get rid of some of this red in the front. But we still have some orange from our pontoons sticking out. So we could actually move this out like that. Copy one of these over to fill that gap. Do the same thing on the other side. Select this, come over to this side and copy. Now we have all green on the front. Now it's going to give us some more weight. So again, we're just going to build this in. Have a look at it. See how it sits in the water. Still floats just fine. Still not too much weight in the front end. If we hit the gas, you can see we're cruising up to 50, no problem. You can even go over and we're hitting like 55. If we pull back a bit, stick those propellers more in the water. But we still have some gaps there in front that we can still deal with as far as getting rid of our red marks for our arrows. We can see our seat here is causing some drag. This empty area back here is causing some drag as well. So let's see what we can do to get rid of that. So get rid of those. I'm going to select these 2 and get rid of them. Again, they're kind of short, so I'm going to use a, let's go with this one, the 2 slope. Put that on the front. And then we're going to go with a 2x4 flat brick. Drop that down to fill in that space. I'm going to move our seat up a little bit. It's a lighter seat, so we can move it to the front to kind of counter some of that tail end weight. And then in here on the inside, we're going to put a couple of these because again, Trailmakers doesn't like empty spaces, sees that as resistance. So we're going to fill those in there, and then we're going to go with a sloped. Actually, that's a little bit big. Let's go with the 2x2 slope about in the center like this. Check our aerodynamics. As you can see, we got rid of the red arrows on the seat. We still have these red arrows back here and these orange, which is the propellers, which has some space in front of them here on top. So we'll put something back there so we can even transfer these 2 back. Copy them. I got rid of the orange off of there, so we got just some red in here. And even in there, it doesn't really matter if it's sloped or flat, but we'll put some sloped in there just to make it look funky. Put a couple of slopes. And as you can see, the only place where we have resistance now is on the front. And again, just to make it look a little better, we're going to grab one of these 1x4 slopes. Pop it down here on either side of the seat. I mean, we could actually copy it and flip it around this way as well. Get that kind of look. Okay, we can get rid of our aerodynamic arrows. So this is basically what we have. Let's see if it still floats. It does. Floats pretty good, actually. Let's hit the space bar and see what happens. So as you can see, pretty basic flotation device. Floats, stays good because we have our propellant in line with our center of gravity. if it was way too below. Like, see, now even at a point like this, I would try putting, because we have some more weight in the front, you can try adding one of these. Let's see, select it, copy, make another one, we'll flip it so that its connection points are up. And then try moving it more towards the front. You want it as much, yeah, get out of the way, buddy. You want as much it to add as weight in the front as you do to add propellant in the front. So we'll try this to see if it lifts the front end. But it can't lift it too far. It's got more power in the back. So now we're doing 55, 56. As we're turning, straight line, we can probably get up to 60. Yep, no problem. Pull back a little bit. So, and if you find you build your boat and you're getting this rocking action, like this, what that means is that your propellant below is pushing you up out of the water, and then any propellant you have above your center of gravity is pushing you back down into the water. Now see, that's why we go with a diving bell when we're testing, so that we don't end up getting thrown from our boat all the time. So now as far as steering on the boat, if you don't want to use seat steering, we can throw some simple steering on here. Now a lot of the times you can use steering simply by turning the actual rotors themselves, or you can just use a servo underwater. Flip that sucker over. It just so happens that we have a 4 square available down here on the bottom of our propeller holders. So what we're going to do down here on the bottom, again, we want to select our configure here. Always remember that if it rotates, if there's a fin hanging off the bottom of this and it pulls over to the right, or to the left, sorry, then that's going to want to turn your front end in that same direction. So we know that red is going to make us go left, green is going to make us go right, and then all we need to do is slap a... Now, you want to control the speed on this as well, so click your configure button down here on speed. Default is 1.0. I always set everything to 0.1. The slowest it can possibly go. Angle is 45. That's a lot as well. You don't want that. Usually set that to about 20 or 30. You don't want to hold position because you want it to automatically straighten itself out. And then all we need to do is come down to our lift and drag tab here. And depending, if you want to, let's see, we'll start with a smaller fin, non-powered. So we'll put a small fin down here, rotate that around facing the right way. And again, wings and fins work the same way as long as they're right side up for wings, for lift. The fins work the same way backwards as they do forwards. So a lot of it just has to do with aesthetics, how you want it to look. So we'll put a couple of fins down here. We'll pop this into the water. Now this is going to add more weight to the back. Come on, man. Devs, you got to do something about that, man. My creation should not spawn into the same area on the map as I am. So, we've got fins on the bottom. Now we can look underneath here. When we push A or D, you can see that it's turning this way. So basically we have some small fins. You can see how well that works. Oh, we might want to get rid of this down here, just so that we're not lifting out of the water. So those fins will try and turn, like rotate your entire boat. So that's where you want. Again, this is a pretty small boat. It's light, not a lot of weight holding it in the water. If we pull back, we can try and get rid of that bounce. Yeah, another way to get rid of that bounce would be to, so you go into build mode here. So it's pushing us down, then back up, down, then back up. So that shows that our propulsion is can be recentered. Or I'll put money on it that if I were to put one more on top, yeah, that probably won't even be in the water. I bet you if I were to put that like that. Now, as far as how to connect that, see, this is half the joys of this game. Let's try rotating it this way. Drop it down one. Then we can come to our normal blocks, come down here to our shield pieces. Oh no, of course that's not going to be big enough. I'm going to go with the 2x4. Rotate this around flat. Pop it over this way, drop it down. So just using it to connect that gap, so it's connecting that one there. And let's see how that does. That's going to give us a lot more weight in the back. But I'm hoping it's also going to give us enough forward propulsion. Keep us going straight. I think that the rocking, that's coming from our too much weight in the back. So this is where, again, great place to try using some of the smaller pontoons. Or, yeah, see, we don't have enough room to move those back. Let's try this. Let's try propping these out. We'll swap spots with our pontoons. We'll drop these pontoons to the back. And we'll move our propellers up here. So this should give us more flotation in the back and move some of our weight to the front. Let's try that. Definitely sits better in the water. Hit the space bar. Look at that. Squeezy lemons. Look at that. 56, no problem. 58. So that's the basics of building a boat. From there, it is it's all just dependent on the size of your boat, the length of your boat, how many pontoons, where you're going to put them on there, making sure your balance is good, making sure you keep everything stable so that when it sits in the water, you want the back end down just a little bit, so that when you do start to accelerate, the front end comes up out of the water. If your front end does go down into the water, even these slope pieces will act like wedges and they'll drive you into the water. So you want to try and stay just above the water. In later episodes of these boat building versions, we'll get to the point where I'm going to show you guys how to hydroplane, how to set it up so that your boat basically is not in contact with the water, so that you can achieve maximum speed with the minimum amount of resistance. So yeah, hope this can help you with some simple basics of boats. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit that like button. Any comments, if there's any questions that you have, anything else more specific, let me know. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.